Checking 1, 2. Hello? So welcome to Camp Explore at the Westport Library. We're also excited to have you here today. For those who I don't know, my name is Krishna Patel, and I have the privilege of serving on the Board of Trustees at the Westport Library. I am so thrilled and delighted to actually introduce today's discussion, which will take place with Charles Smith and David Rudin, both who are Fairfield County natives. I wanted to start actually by talking a little bit about Charles, because I got to meet him not as a professional athlete, but because of the extraordinary work that he is doing with a mutual friend to support very vulnerable youth around the globe. You will not be surprised to also hear that Charles has a foundation here in Bridgeport, which also works with kids, and something that he's been deeply committed to for so long. All of his work to support children, particularly those children in crisis, speaks so much to the character of the man that you're about to hear from today. And although he may not need any introduction, there are things that are worth mentioning. First and foremost, he was born in Bridgeport. He graduated Warren Harding High School, went on to the University of Pittsburgh, where among his many accolades, he was the Big East Player of the Year. He then went on to a truly, truly remarkable decade-long career as an NBA professional basketball player, where he played for, among other teams, both the Clippers and the Knicks. He also played for the U.S. national team and got to be an Olympian during that process. And since his retirement, has gone on to be an incredibly successful businessman and entrepreneur. I think all of us during this COVID time may be missing sports. We realize not only what a touch point they are for the community, but for me personally, when you watch sports, you're actually watching people who just absolutely love what they do. They work so hard every day to do what they do. And because of the passion that they bring, they do things that are truly, truly superhuman right in front of us, especially for those of us who might be 5'4". The work that Charles has done throughout his life really, really shows what a remarkable life it is to live. But perhaps most importantly, Charles has embraced the idea that as a professional athlete, he is really a role model. And perhaps there's no better example of the leadership that we have seen than the athletes who have both responded to and led in the Black Lives Matter movement. And so I hope there's some opportunity to speak a little bit about that. Today we're also joined by David Rudin, who is the publisher of the Rudin Report, and for over 20 years has been a sports writer for the Stanford Advocate. He's also a native of Westport. So please virtually join me in welcoming both Charles and David.
Thanks very much. Charles, you make it hard here. We got about 45 minutes, and it takes about that much time for your resume here with everything you've done. But welcome, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thank you, Krishna.
23 years since you retired from the NBA. First of all, what are you doing now?
Well, now I was head of sports entertainment for Mediacom, and I was one of many who kind of got furloughed, as they say, or let go for a little while. But right now I'm doing management consulting for a company called Silverblade, and kind of looking at the next act, kind of looking at what I'll be doing next.
Does it seem like it's been that long since you played?
Yeah, it does. It actually does. No, time flies. It really goes by very quickly, and you don't pay attention to it. There was a moment when I realized that time really went by is when I went back to the University of Pittsburgh, and I did an event there, and some of the fans, when I played, were there, and somebody yelled out, "Man, Charles, I haven't seen you in a long time. It's been 30 years since you've been on this campus." And I was like, wow, that's a long time.
So take us through the road from everybody. Well, I remember, not everybody, but old people like me remember when you played at Harding for Charlie Bentley. Talk a little bit about your road from Bridgeport to the NBA.
Well, growing up in Bridgeport was really the highlight of everything for me. You know, when you look at Bridgeport, it's it is the most diverse city in the state of Connecticut. From the time I was a teenager till today, you can eat any cuisine in any part of town. I love American cuisine. I hit the sitting duck and Trumbull. I'll go to Bridgeport and hit Braza. It's a Portuguese restaurant. I go to any restaurant and get any cuisine. I love the fact that from a sports perspective, growing up till now, I can see the best amateur soccer played in the state, probably in this region, just in Bridgeport. There are people there that are just amazing from all over the world. And I go down to UB on the weekends, and if I'm around, I go to Seaside Park, I'll watch them play because the athleticism is just unbelievable. I can see cricket. So there's all sorts of sports, and I was able to do so many things, all the parks, and play ball all over the city. So I just had a wonderful time growing up in Bridgeport, and still love coming back on the weekends periodically and really just seeing friends and family on every side of town. So playing at Harding High School, I can remember when, you know, I went into high school at 5'10" and left at 6'9". And I grew 6 inches in one summer. And I didn't realize it, but, you know, I go in as a guard, and then I go into my junior year. I just never remember someone saying, "Charles, how tall are you?" And I never remember saying 6'1", 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I just remember somebody measuring me, and I was 6'7". And so I grew very quickly, and I went from a guard to a forward to a center. And at that time, our team was ranked 3rd in the nation. We finished 3 in the nation, and I don't think, you never know. I don't know whether another team will be assembled like that, but we had 6 guys go Division I on our team, and it was fun playing for Charlie Bentley. It was good to know that you can, anywhere you went, we knew that we were either going to win or we knew we had a great chance to win, and that's a great feeling when you're on a team environment like that. So I enjoyed playing and playing against a lot of schools around town.
You obviously played for a lot of great coaches, and you are accomplished in academics and professionally in the business world as you were as a player. What people have influenced you the most?
Well, I still talk to Julius Erving, and we work on a few projects together, but what's interesting is I didn't follow basketball growing up. I only went to one game at the Garden, and that was because I became the Newsday All-American in this area. So all the players in the tri-state area got a chance to go to and it was a Knicks-Indiana game, and I was at the top of the arena till halftime, then we left. So I never watched basketball, and my first NBA game I watched was my junior year of college. It was at a Pizza Hut, and I had just come off of playing in the World Games, and a couple of my teammates wanted to watch a game, so we went to Pizza Hut on campus and watched a game. That was the first game I watched from the beginning to the end. So I love to compete. I love the challenge, and that's what drove me. But I was never a student of the game. I mentioned Julius Erving because I remember seeing him and meeting him. I met him when John Williamson had a memorial service in New Haven, Connecticut, and Julius came to it, and I was there. And I was just amazed at how he carried himself, how articulate he was. He spent time with me, talked to me, and I was a lot, younger. And I was like, man, I was really impressed with him, and he's had a big impact on I just watched him over the years, the things he did off the court with Pepsi and some other companies, and he's a consummate entrepreneur. So he was a big influence, but growing up, the people who influenced me the most are the people that work here at the library. Like I had my Dan and Nancy and Krishna in Bridgeport. And those people were the ones that motivated me and pushed me to to be on the chess club at Orchid Boys Club when I was young. I knew nothing about chess. And to be on the team, the chess team. And then I ended up doing it at Harding High School. And everybody's like, you're playing chess? Yeah, because I learned when I was 9, 10 going to the boys club. So those were the people who influenced me the most, the people in our community. And I think for kids, you know, you have your parents, but I always say this, you know, kids kids have a problem listening to adults, to their elders, but they don't have a problem imitating the adults and elders. But it's those in the community that they'll imitate and watch the most other than their parents. And I think I did that. I watched Nancy Noonan and Charlie Adams at Orchid Boys Club, and I watched how they dealt with the other kids and dealt with me, and that impacted me as a young person coming up, and that was a big part of my development.
I think a lot of people watching this right now probably saw the Michael Jordan documentary that was on right when we started to quarantine. I remember when you played for the Knicks, that was probably the biggest rivalry in the NBA, Knicks-Bulls. You probably met in the playoffs every year. You were there. You went against Michael Jordan. What was that like, and was he the best player you ever played against?
Well, you know, people ask me that, and this is not an arrogant answer, and this is for all kids that play sports. If you're going to play sports, you can't really care about your competition. You have to focus on yourself to be the best player that you can be and just go out and perform. Who cares who you're playing against? The moment a kid at any level, at their grade level, or even with me in the pros, the moment I'm concerned about who I'm playing with is the moment I may not be in that sport anymore, or is the moment where I won't reach the height that I need to reach. Because competition is what it is. I can always learn to this day off a bunch of kids playing sports. I love to go watch a bunch of 9, 10-year-olds play basketball because you're going to see that one or two out there that does something great. He might drive to the basket with his right hand every single time, and nobody can stop that kid driving to the basket every single time with his right hand because he's mastered it at that age level. So playing against Michael Jordan was no different than playing against another, in my mind, against anyone else. Because if I thought any different, I probably wouldn't be out there. You know, was he a great player? Phenomenal. Did you get up and get motivated to play in those series? Absolutely. But man for man, hey, he's just a man. Now, I no longer play, and I can look at The Last Dance and really appreciate his competitive spirit. I can really appreciate his tenacity and how he was as a leader. I can really appreciate it more now than I did when I played against him because I didn't care about him when I played against him. So that's kind of my answer.
There are a lot of sports star fans who are looking forward to the NBA starting up again tomorrow night. Are you still a fan? Do you watch a lot?
I watch it when I don't run home to watch games. But like I was talking about, I love to see special talent, and I can watch it at any level, competition. I can go to a hockey game and watch a bunch of kids play hockey and notice a kid and lock into that kid and see what that kid does well. So that's the same for professional basketball, NBA. I like to watch talented guys who have worked to get better each year, and I like to watch how they've gotten better. I like to see talented people that come into a sport and change the game because of their abilities. So my new watch this year is Manute Bol's son, Bobo. That's going to be my new watch. I want to see him play. I think he's, they like to say, you know, call somebody like that a unicorn, but I don't really want to do that because when you call somebody a unicorn, you got to ask, is it fantasy or reality? And he's a real guy, and he can really do the things that he does. So I love watching LeBron play, only because he knows how to control the game from just being on the floor. It's masterful. I love watching him pass, shoot at the right times, get guys in position. I love watching that. I love watching him play. So that's how my thirst for the game right now is to look at talent and in the playoffs when the competition is at its highest.
That's interesting. The sport always goes, all sports, everything in life goes through different cycles. How's the game now changed from when you were playing? And how's it better? How's it worse? How's it different?
Well, I'm never going to say that the game is worse because, everything evolves and nothing stays the same. I've gotten to the point, maybe 5 or 6 years after I retired, or even later, where I can go, maybe 7 years, where I can go to a game and eat popcorn and enjoy it. Before, I would go to a game and I'm watching the guy missed the screen there, and that's happened. I'm technically watching the game. You can't enjoy it that way. So now I follow the ball like everybody else. I'm not looking off the ball to who's doing what over there. I'm watching the game. I'm watching what's happening. I'm enjoying popcorn, and I like to watch the athleticism of the guys. When I went into the NBA, myself, Danny Manning, and Derek McKee, we were the first 6'10" small forwards in our class to come into the game. And so the height differential was getting up there. And now you got Kevin Durant. We're talking about Manute Bol. You got all these guys who are 6'10", shooting threes. The post isn't what it used to be. But the game is more athletic. There's not as much hard fouls and all that kind of stuff. So they open the game up, and it's just pleasurable to watch.
How about they made you commissioner for a day with it starting up? Is there one change you would make?
Yeah, I'd allow guys to hand check on defense.
Would you? How
Yeah.
come?
Because it makes the game that much more tougher for the talent. If you're able to put your hand on somebody's hip, you can actually guide them on offense where they're going. So that causes that guy to be that much stronger to be able to maneuver and
Playing, people are,
yeah,
slopping,
you can't touch them.
slopping hands off anybody.
Yeah,
Now
yeah.
it's gotten too much.
Yeah.
How about starting up again and playing the sport during this coronavirus pandemic? What are your thoughts? Would you play right now if you were playing now and you had to make that decision? Would you play?
Well, not just in the pros would you make the decision whether you play. You got to look at all the kids, even the kids here in Westport. They're not able to play their sport. I see some AAU programs with the girls are back in action and the parents are wearing masks in the stands and the girls are playing. It's tough. It's a tough decision. It's a tough decision for the kids. It's a tough decision for the families. From a pro level, it's based on economics. The teams are losing a lot of money by not having the clubs out there playing. But on the flip side, because I was in the union, I know teams have insurance, so they're getting something back. but overall, we as fans just want to see the guys and the women play. WNBA women, we want to see everybody play. And it's a tough time because you can't watch it because of the virus. And everybody's at home. A lot of the kids can't go out and play their sport and get better. I feel for a lot of the kids that are seniors in high school that are trying to get looks to play sports in college, and that just kind of subsided, and they're still trying to get in school. So it's a tough time. And I wish we were all just playing and having a good time, and I could just go out and play at any time myself.
You mentioned kids, so let's segue over to the kids a little bit. First of all, I know something that's very important to you. You started the Charles Smith Foundation in Bridgeport. What was the impetus for doing that?
Well, growing up in Bridgeport, like I said, I was able to go to any park during the summertime, and the city would have counselors in those parks. And they would, my mother can drop me off at any park, and we had scheduled activities during that day in the park. They gave us beverages during the day, and either I walk home, she picked me up, I can go to a boys' club. A lot of those programs were no longer in existence when I got older and got to college and came back home. So I wanted to do some things to help the children in Bridgeport, and it was important to me to help them, but help them in sports, but academically. So it was, you wanted to help them out socially, culturally, academically, and provide programs for them to excel in those areas, and we did that. We did a lot of programs. The best program that I ever did during the time that I had the foundation in Bridgeport was with the Easton, I think it was the Easton Boys and Girls Club. I can see the woman's face. But we had 50 kids from the Easton Boys and Girls Club or their community center come to my foundation on the Easton and Bridgeport, and then my kids would go there. And we did that for about a month and a half, about 6 weeks. And the kids got so much out of it, more than I can ever imagine. I mean, the kids became friends. They began to communicate with each other on computers. They talked about their home life, family. They just kind of got into it. It reminded me of, like, if you put a bunch of babies on this stage and they're all 2 years old of different cultures and nationalities, they're all going to play with each other. And it took time, but maybe after the third or fourth day, it was phenomenal. Phenomenal conversations that they had. I enjoyed it because I would sit and listen to them. And they educated each other. And that was the best program I've ever had during my 20 years of nonprofit work in Bridgeport.
Academics, obviously very important to you. I'm sure everybody always asks you when they come in, what's your favorite basketball this, what's your favorite basketball that? What were your favorite subjects in school?
My favorite subjects, I like science, biology, to be more specific. I loved biology, and it could have been because of the teacher. I had a great biology teacher, and I loved science. I did not like history.
How come?
It just, I don't know, it didn't interest me, you know. I just was not a fan of history. I just wasn't a fan. But I love biology. That was probably my favorite subject. But I probably would say that the teachers had a big impact on a lot of things that I did that I excelled in high school. You know, Yale was recruiting me when I was coming out of high school, and I wonder if I go back there, would I go to Yale, knowing what I know today. But I was caught up like every other kid saying, I want to go big time. I want to play in the Big East, Yale, and you know, I didn't give them and they tried hard, but I didn't respond to them because I didn't know. But yeah, I liked just being with the students in school, and I love foreign languages. I love Spanish. So those are probably my favorite two.
How did your interest in academics and obviously your curiosity about learning, how did those serve as stepping stones for you during the course of everything, getting to college, getting to the MBA, getting to where you are right now?
Well, you know, academics was instilled upon me because of my mother, Dorothy, and I know you're watching. Yeah, I know you're watching. So my mother, Dorothy, she instilled academics on me and my three sisters. My father was a police officer in town, so my mother was also a disciplinarian, but we could not come home with bad grades. It just wasn't happening. And if it did happen, I can recall at times where I did get some pretty bad grades because I just wasn't applying myself, and that wasn't a good thing. You know, I had to pick them back up. But academics was very important to me, but not just from a book sense, but you know, when you look at my yearbook at Harding, the first 2 years were all the extracurricular activities that I participated in. You really didn't see much the first 2 years. The last years you would see journalism club, library club, chess club, golf. I just started applying myself to a lot of different things because that's how I was when I was younger. I just stopped for a couple years when I went to Harding, and then I kind of got back into socializing and doing a lot of things, and it really helped. I would tell every kid, who loves to play sports, to become diverse and just themselves with culture and being around other students and other kids, because that's the real education. I live a diverse lifestyle. If you ever came to my home for an event, you're going to see one of my best friends, Hong Jong, there. You're going to see Chinese. You're going to see white, black. You're going to see Indian. I have friends from different nationalities that played a role in my life through business, through sport, and that's the best education that any kid can have, is to embrace culture, learn about other people's cultures, because that's going to impact a lot of stuff that you do later on down the road.
As somebody who covers high school sports, I've always told people a good coach also can have an effect on students the same way the teacher in the classroom does. The gyms, the playing fields are another place where there's learning taking place. Do you agree with that?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you played for Charlie, so...
Yeah, there's no doubt. For the kids that are playing sports, you learn so much. At Harding High School, when I was in high school, and with Coach Bentley, you couldn't play basketball unless you ran cross country. And he used cross country for us to get in shape. We were already in shape by the time the season started. And I hated running distance, long distance. And we would, for our training for cross country, we run, maybe 10, 15 miles, and then come back to the gym and play. But it was that hard work ethic where there was the competition. You weren't going to play unless you were able to compete, and there were no starters on our team. Every day and every week, you had to earn your right to start in the game. So you had a chance in practice. So
he used to sub 5 people in, 5 out. Did he do that?
The
5 in, 5 out.
Because he had the talent to do that. But it was that rotation that you'd be able to move up. He gave everybody a chance to excel, but you had to get better and show it in practice to play in the games. And I don't think a lot of coaches do that anymore, because it's almost like your talent is bestowed upon you, that you're an automatic starter. I think that every kid who's a top kid on their team for any sport, every coach should make that kid work just as hard as everybody else in practice to earn that position each game that they play, because that's going to make that kid appreciate hard work.
I wasn't going to ask you this until you said that, but I was just thinking, would you ever want to coach? Would you want to coach youth basketball?
I would coach. I would not coach college. I would not coach in the pros. I could coach high school, and I would coach youth.
I could see you coaching high school. That's why
I'd coach high school. I could, but I definitely would coach youth. I love coaching my sons coming up, but high school, I'd consider it, but I don't know. But I love coaching kids.
We were talking a little bit when we got here just about what's going on in the country right now, the Black Lives Matter movement. What are your thoughts on everything that's happening right now?
Well, when you have this type of, friction, even in sports, and I use this analogy for Black Lives Matter. In sports, if I'm competing against another player, or I'm trying to get my opportunity to play, if I'm that kid on the team that everybody likes and everybody loves, then I'm not doing my job. Because when the competition kicks in and you're about to take somebody's position, it's that friction that starts. And through that friction, education evolves, people get better, everything is exploited, and then you go on to the next level, but you got to address it. So with Black Lives Matters, it wasn't until it was in the atmosphere and people knew that there were challenges and there were problems in our country. But it was that one horrific incident with George Floyd that opened up the can of worms for everybody to see, to talk, to discuss, and to try to fix. So now it's open. And for me, I love having the hard conversations with my friends. There's a friend that I have in Danbury that we're going to dinner Thursday night to talk about it. And he's white, and we're good friends. You gotta have those hard conversations. Like you heard me earlier, I'm an ambassador of cultures. I love other cultures and talking to people and getting to know them. This is a situation where people, if you want to embrace someone else's culture, you'll understand Black Lives Matter. Right now, people are still tolerant of other people's culture. Dave, if you're interviewing me right now, and if we weren't on TV and we weren't on camera and we're having a conversation and I didn't like you, I can tolerate you and be on my best behavior because I know I'm not going to be around you for a long period of time. And I'll just leave, right? And that's tolerating somebody, so that's a negative. But if I wanted to accommodate you and I embraced you and you felt that I wanted to get to know you and we can remain social and get together some other time, that's different. And we need to do that. We need to accommodate each other and get to learn more about one another. And I think that's the start of addressing our racism in this country.
To me, it's all about dialogue. I think
Yep.
there are too many people talking and not enough people listening.
Correct.
So, I mean, are there any, obviously, if you had all the ideas, we wouldn't be having the problem right now, but how does everybody, because it's going to take, it's not one or two people, it's a country, how do we solve this, or how do we start making the road to being a more understanding and loving country?
Right. Well, I think, me personally, my father was a police officer for 25 years in Bridgeport, Connecticut. And what I see today that's happening with our law enforcement is also horrific for all parties involved, and mainly African Americans. Growing up, I would see my father in that blue uniform coming home and going out, and I wanted to be a cop. Today, and for kids growing up, it's totally the opposite. Kids might be fearful when they see cops, and it's not supposed to be like that. So because that is the tipping point of what's going on in the country, I think that is where we start addressing it. And you got I forgot, it's called the Standards Board, where all the police officers get their licenses across the country. And we have these standards boards in every state except for 2. I think that's the place where you start, where you have to, they're the ones that can pull the licenses from the sergeants, captains, and all these officers. I think it starts there. I see people talking and maneuvering and doing a lot of things and marching, but you got to go where the root of the problem can be resolved, and that's one of them. But these individuals that are bad cops, their license needs to be revoked so they can't go to another precinct, they can't work at another state. It needs to be pulled from them so that they have to go get another job. And until that happens, we'll still have the problem. So I think what's going on in the country, from my perspective, that's one of the things that needs to happen. And because that's in the eye of everybody right now, it can start there.
It's got to be really disturbing just to watch this. I mean, it's surreal to me just that this is really happening.
Yeah, it is surreal. And I will say this, for all the kids that are watching, I am enamored and just enthralled with this younger generation that's the age range today of like 16 to 25. As I get older, I have mentors now that are older than me, but I'm starting to get mentors that are a lot younger, understand technology. I want to hear their opinion. These kids, their opinion is valued because they see the world a different way. The reason why all these kids that are watching today, the reason why all you see the world a different way is because you grew up with technology. other cultures were in your bedroom and in your living room all day long. A lot of the kids have worldwide, they share different sayings and memes and all this stuff. So they see the world a little different than we do, than our generation. And I see them protest, and I see the things that they say and what they do. I see what how my kids think. And when they come of age, whether we fix it or not, they will fix it.
I agree with you. As someone who works a lot with high school kids, the one thing I'm seeing right now, these kids don't like the world that we're leaving for them. They're, you guys failed us. We're
Yep.
going to change it ourselves. We're going to, if you're not going to make the world better for us, we're going to do it ourselves.
And as adults, we need to get behind these kids, listen to what they're saying, because technology drives our marketplace. When you look at United States overall, the top companies, technology is not going anywhere. We're a tech-driven country. And these kids understand technology better than any of us, but they're applying the technology to their education. So they're coming up with new applications to do different things, and I learned from them. I would sit with a 17, 18-year-old and talk tech all day before I sit with a 50-year-old to talk about business and what's happening in the economy, because I'll get a better education from them.
I get one every day. It's a really cool thing. I'm sure a lot of people watching us right now are aspiring basketball players, people who would like to try to get to the next level. Obviously, it's excellence on the court, but there are other things involved. So if a kid came up to you and just said, I want to follow in your footsteps, first I'd like to try to play basketball in college, what should I do? What advice would you give?
I would tell every single kid that's playing a sport, every single kid that has goals of high academia achievements, I don't care what they're doing, what they're aspiring to do, I would tell them, number one, embrace failure. Embrace it. These kids are growing up in a society where they have false friends and social media that are impacting them emotionally. How do you allow someone who you don't know, who you don't see, impact your mood and how you move through the course of the day because of something they said on social? That plays into the sport because they're worried about what people think about them in the stands, in the crowd. They're worried about if they fall, if they don't look right, what their clothes look like while they're playing the sport. I would say to them that embrace failure, because that's where your education is in sport and in the school, in your schoolwork. Everybody's going to fail, right? But understand that failure is written in pencil. It's erasable if you learn from it. And that is your most important education, is when you fail. It's not someone who, like the boxer, who gets knocked down to the mat. It's not the knockdown, it's him getting up. You want to see how he gets up, how quickly he gets up, and what he does when he gets up. And kids need to understand that. If you're going to play a sport, stop worrying about what other people think. Because if you're worried about what other people think, it's taking away from your ability of getting better. That's the first thing I would say. The second thing I would say to a kid is compete. You and your friends can be the best of friends, but when you're competing against each other, compete against each other as hard as you can, as if you're not friends. Because what's going to happen is you're going to bring each other up and you're going to help each other get better. I used to compete in high school against my friends. We would go at it. And then afterwards, we'd be friends. We had an understanding that we're only doing this to help us get better. And kids have to compete, and they can't be afraid of failure. And if they do those two things, they'll excel, because what they learn in sport will be everything that they need to know in business, because that competitive nature that they learn in sport will play into anything they do later on in life.
Okay, this is going to be my question before we get to the questions from people watching. This is my pet peeve as a sports writer here in Fairfield County. If you don't play Division I sports, you're not a success.
Oh.
Everybody, you got to get to Division I. You got to get to Division I. If you're playing D2, if you're playing D3, you're a good athlete. And I don't understand, and I'm curious your thoughts. Why this whole thing about you have to play Division I? You go to a prep school, you give up another year and reclassify so that you can get to Division I. And there are a lot of great athletes that are playing D3. They're going to some of the liberal arts schools in the Northeast, and they're getting great educations, and they're using their sports talent to really help make themselves more successful in life and open doors for them.
Well, first of all, I always would push every kid to reach for the stars. If your goal is to be an NBA player, NFL player, doctor, lawyer, Division I player, go for it and put your best at it. Now, with that being said, if you do that and you don't accomplish that goal, it does not mean life is over or you failed. What that means is that's not meant for you, but there's another path over here. There's another championship rung on the ladder over here. Because you've pushed yourself to that point of excellence, because a kid has pushed himself to get to that D1 spot, that means that they have a desire and they've learned something along the way that's transferable. I know some kids that I played with in college that didn't become a pro. And they are very successful, highly successful business people. I know kids that didn't go D1 that went D2, and they are highly successful with their families and doing great in life. Same with D3. So you gotta shoot to be the best. But just because you don't reach your goal in your mind of what you wanted to do, you're still successful. Don't give up, but understand that you can still work just as hard and be just as successful as the next person. You just have a different path. All right, let's look at some of the people that didn't play in the NBA. All right, so let's take a person that didn't get drafted, and now they're a doctor, a lawyer, a scientist, whatever it is. The reason why they got there is because they utilized all of what they learned to become a successful athlete. The work ethic, the competition, being smart and understanding how to deal with people. These are all the things that you learn in the sport. They don't go away because you're not a D1 player. They don't go away. You still got it in you. Use them and continue to use them and be successful. Life is about being successful. Everybody wants to get ahead. You want to get ahead. He wants to get ahead. All of you watching want to get ahead. The question is, will you make the sacrifices to get ahead? Will you continue to push to get ahead? And when you don't reach what you think is that top of the mountain, will you shift to another mountain to get ahead? That's what it's all about. Keep pushing.
I think that's an important message for all kids to hear now. So I think some of the people that are watching us right now have their questions. So I'm going to let some other people play point guard here and feed you the ball a little bit.
All right.
We do, for sure. Thank you so much, Dave. So we have a bunch of questions from folks. I'm going to start with Finn's. Finn says, "Hi, I'm probably the biggest Kid Knicks fan ever. I follow everything they do and know a lot about the players that have played here. What was your most memorable moment of your playing career?"
In my playing career, hey, Finns, how you doing? My most memorable moment in my playing career, I actually have two. One was we were playing Charlotte in the playoffs when I was a Knick. And it was written in the newspaper that I was the X Factor. You know, that's when Charlotte had Alonzo Mourning, Larry Johnson, and Muggsy Bogues, Kendall Gill. They had a really good team, Del Curry. And I was the X Factor. If I can average 12 and 7, we'd have a chance. That's what was in the media. Well, going into that playoff game, I had gotten food poisoning, and we were staying at the Regency Hotel. I gotten food poisoning during a lunch that I ate game day. Man, I couldn't keep anything down. I was sweating, and Beth Israel Hospital, the doctors we used came to my hotel room. I got like 8 or 9 bags of water, IVs, putting me in the hotel room. And right before game time, players were all dressed. I got there, got dressed, and went to go play the game. And I had a really great game. I had no idea how I was going to play. And not only did I play well, but my percentages, everything was on point. And I really felt good about that because no one knew what was going on with me but me, and I was competing against myself, and I just remember that. Another point was my 52-point game when I was a Clipper, where I could have broke that record. There was 3 minutes left to go in the game, and everybody's still telling me, shoot the ball, shoot the ball. I had no idea what they were talking about, and we were already up by like 30, and it was a missed opportunity to get 60 Fins, but that was a memorable moment.
Okay, so from the world's biggest kid Knick fan to a Knick fan since 1966, a question from Arthur. I've been a Knick fan since '66. I appreciate more than ever what you guys accomplished and the mindset of that team. What now do you appreciate most about having played on those extremely competitive Knicks teams?
Wow, Arthur, that's an awesome, awesome question. You know, I had a chance to play for 3 great coaches that I had 7 or 8 coaches, but Pat Riley was like a X and O's guru. And what he taught me when I played for him during those years, I learned today and I utilize today in business. If there was a problem that we had amongst the team regarding a play, there was a certain part of the play that we were just not getting it right during the games, he would pull that little piece out during practice, and we would practice that piece within this play all practice long. And we would get it down to a science and then put the piece back in, and we go out and play and see it work like string music. I also loved our competitive nature. When we were in practice, we really competed against one another. Our practices were harder than the games. And that's the preparation that I still use today for whatever I do. I really dig in and I prepare for whatever task is ahead of me. So that's the mentality you're talking about, Arthur. Those are 2 takeaways that I loved about our team and me being on that team in that environment.
Mary asks, if you were playing today, what social message would you put on the back of your jersey?
Good one, Mary. Wow. I'm thinking, what social message would I put on the back of my jersey? Be a cultural ambassador. Be a cultural ambassador. And the reason why I say that, Mary, I just believe that you know, people go to school now for diplomacy. I think that needs to change because people are going into different countries for diplomacy, being leaders and representing various regions and countries, but what they're missing is their cultural education. You can't go to another country and be a diplomatic leader without really being able to embrace their culture. So I think that's the key to our world today, being a cultural ambassador, because we have to get to know each other to want to help each other and love each other.
So here's one from Cliff. Do you ever hear from your teammate Jerome Lane? I still remember when he broke the backboard on a dunk.
Yeah, I talk to Jerome probably once a month, and I remember that play so well, and it's the best dunk of all time, and you know, played against him when he was at the Denver Nuggets when we went into the league together. Yeah, so I still talk to him. He's working at a youth center in his hometown, and he's had some issues with his family, and he just lost his son to cancer. Bless his soul, but I do keep in touch with him.
And Greg asks, as a follow-up to that, are there any other teammates from your NBA playing days who you still keep in touch with today?
Yeah, Greg, I keep in touch with a lot of teammates. I on a lot of different teams. Let me see, I talk to Rolando Blackman probably once every 3 weeks. If I'm ever out in Los Angeles, I go to a Clipper game, I take time, catch up with Doc Rivers, some of my guys with the Clippers, Gary Grant, Reggie Williams. There's a lot of guys here in New York, Charles Oakley. Yeah, I keep in touch with a lot of guys, and I see them around and at different times, different events. We get together often.
Lewis asks 2 questions. So,
And I can't forget John Starks. I was just at his place, not to cigar bar up in Stamford. I can't forget John. He's right up the street.
He's still in Stanford, isn't he?
Yeah, can't forget John.
So Lewis asked 2 questions. First, what do you remember of the World Championship gold medal in 1986 in Spain? And then what do you think of now how international players have evolved into being almost a third of the league today?
2 great questions. One with the gold medal game where we won the World Games. What I remember most about it, here's an incident. We were going into the championship game against Russia. And on that team was David Robinson, Armin Gilliam, Kenny Smith, Muggsy Bogues, Sean Elliott, Steve Kerr, Derek McKee, Danny Manning. We had a really good team. Here's what I remember. No, Danny Manning, was he on that team? No, because he had got hurt. But we're in the hotel room. We're in a room, and we're all just kind of hanging out. And I think Kenny Smith walks in with a newspaper, and on the picture had this 7'5" Russian guy that we were playing against that was on the team. And the article was like, you know, grown men playing against young boys. And the international players had evolved. They had caught up to us being talented college guys. Everybody thought we were going to lose. We were down by 17 at halftime. And Lou Olson was our coach. And at halftime, he said, guys, look, we played as worse as we could. And Lou Olson was very monotone. So he says, guys, look, just go out there, and I don't want you to leave anything. I don't want you to bring anything back in this locker room. Leave it all on the floor. Man to man, he looked at each one of us in our eyes and said, you go out there and you play the hardest basketball you've ever played in your life, and leave it out there. Whatever's ailing you, whatever's bothering you, doesn't bother you anymore. Go make it happen. We come out, and Russia scores the first 6 points. And here's the play that turned it around. Sabonis was on that team, and he got a rebound, and it was a fast break going in, the opposite direction. And Sabonis threw a long pass to one of his teammates, and it got to around the foul line. And Derek McKee jumped up and hit it back. And Sabonis is 7'2". He was coming up the floor, and he saw the ball coming, and Muggsy Bogues started running as fast as he can, 5'3", running as fast as he can, looking at the ball. And Muggsy leaped up in the air, and Sabonis didn't jump. And Muggsy got the ball, took it from Sabonis, came down out of the air. I was on a break, gave it to me. I dunked the basketball. That turned the game around. That play right there turned the game around. And we all talk about it, because if anybody ever sees that video and you see where Muggsy was, where he had to get to, and then jump up with a 7'2" guy and get the ball, amazing, purely amazing. So that's what I remember about that game. And what was the other one? It was the World Games and
The second part was, what do you think of how international players have evolved into being almost a third of the league today?
Right. So in the early 80s, Dick Versace being one. Who's the short commentator during those years? Wore the toupee. He was an NBA commentator.
Yeah, I know who you're
He was
talking
a coach
about.
for the Atlanta Hawks.
Yeah, not
Versace. But anyway,
I
the
know,
coaches
yeah.
of the NBA during that time were going around the world doing these clinics, teaching. And I remember during the Olympics, John Thompson made a comment. He said, you know, here it is 1988. For 8 years, we've spent coaches traveling the world teaching our game. And John Thompson said, you know, you can bring a neighbor into your home and you can feed them, but you don't necessarily have to give them food off of your plate and not give it to your kids and give it to a neighbor. You got to take care of home first. And they evolved. You know, I was on the last team that won international play, and I was on the last college team that lost during the '88 Olympics. And then the pros came in. I think the pros needed to come in because they had evolved. You know, players got a lot better. And if we'd have continued to send college players, we wouldn't have won.
So both Raj and Cliff have said it's Mike Fratello.
There you
Mike
go.
Fratello, Mike Fratello there.
What did I say for Shashi? Yeah, Mike Fratello. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
All right, so Finn wants to know straight up who's the best player right now.
Oh, I gotta stick with LeBron. And I'm gonna tell you why. I became a true LeBron James fan when I watched him take a team he had to the NBA Finals, and he did everything. I've never seen a player in my life control the entire game, control the entire series, from passing, from shooting, from rebounding, fast breaks, making the right decisions, scoring. I never saw that before. And you remember the team he took to the finals.
Yeah.
He didn't have a lot of talent. He had no other all-star on that team. And that was amazing. I can watch that series over and over again. That was amazing. And for him to be the age he is now and performing at the level he's performing now, and granted, he came in at age 15. I'm just kidding. He came in a little older. But you know, by default, he's going to break a lot of records because he came in at a very young age. But he's just so talented.
And it's not just scoring with him. You know, if they're double, triple, then, you know, he's going to finish with 15 assists.
Yes, he's going to make the right.
He will change his game to the way the other teams are playing. So he'd be happy scoring 14, 16, because if he's going to get 16 assists, that's no different than him scoring another 30 points.
Yeah, and I remember B.J. Armstrong, who played with the Bulls. I remember when B.J., the ABCD camp was in New Jersey, and I lived in Jersey, and B.J. was in town, and I called him. I was like, B.J., what's up with this kid LeBron? He's like, Charles, you got to come see him. I can't tell you enough about him. You got to come see him. And I jumped in my car and went down to the ABCD camp and watched LeBron play. And I left thinking, how does a 16, 17-year-old become that advanced mentally in basketball? How does he know to do the things he's doing on the floor? Forget the talent. How does he know to do this? It blew me away. And then I go home, and my kids are playing garage. They got garage band. They're learning playing basketball through these little video games and everything, pick and rolls. I never taught my kid a pick and roll. He's doing a pick and roll. And then it hit me, LeBron. So technology helped him at a young age, too, to learn how to play sport at a young age.
Is it hard to compare eras? I'm sure everybody says who's better, you know, Jordan or LeBron. Is it different eras where it's really hard to say?
They're definitely different type of player. That's always going to be a toss-up. That's always going to be a toss-up because I think, you know, if I had to start a team, do I take Jordan? Do I take LeBron? That's such a tough call. I may be that GM that might take LeBron because I can put him at every position. LeBron can play power forward on defense and offense in all those positions, and he could defend the five. Yeah. And if I needed someone and I could put other pieces around him, he's going to impact everybody. So I might do that, but I don't think he can go wrong, but I might do that.
I wouldn't mind Michael as the second pick.
I probably might take Michael as the first pick, but it's a tough call. Yeah.
So this hour has absolutely flown by, and we still have more questions, but I'm gonna take one more. So why don't we end it on this one? Is there one thing that you would suggest Westporters could do to help Bridgeport schools? What would it be?
If there's one thing that I think Westport schools could do to help Bridgeport schools, integrate. You'll hear me till the day I die talk about embracing culture. You know, the education and I told you what my best program was when the kids from Bridgeport went to Easton and back and forth. That education alone will impact this region. These kids would impact the globe. They would get an education far beyond these books in this library that would be so impactful. You wouldn't believe, even after school programs, integrate after school programs. Get some of the Bridgeport kids to come out to Westport kids to go into Bridgeport schools. Get out of the thought of maybe the Westport kids being fearful of going to Bridgeport. I remember growing up in Bridgeport, I would think that Greenwich growing up was a whole nother country. You got to get out of that mindset. It's that exposure that opens up the door to a whole set new education. It's that exposure.
It's a great spot to end it on, and I just want to say to both of you, to Dave and to Charles, thank you so much for today. What a great talk.
Thank you, Alex.
Really enjoyed it.
Enjoyed it.
Thanks, Ox. It was a lot of fun. And Charles, you were fantastic. I know if we had people here watching, you'd be getting a standing O right now.
They're clapping. They're clapping for Dave. No, I enjoyed it, man. Thank you. This was great. And to all the kids out there who tuned in, thank you for tuning in. I hope you got something out of it. I hope to come back. This is a great library that you have here. Man, I love it. And the events that you can do in here is just incredible.
And to everybody out there, thank you so much for joining us. If you click that green button right in the middle of your screen, you can learn more about Charles Smith and more about the Camp Explore program at westportlibrary.org. Thank you all again. Have a great rest of the day and stay safe.
Thank you.